Strange thing about traps. They don't rattle when you step near them. They stay quiet, dressed up like safety, disguised as comfort, hidden behind smiles and promises. And while you're busy convincing yourself you're fine, there's a voice screaming, louder than you can bear, telling you you're caught, telling you the walls are closing in, telling you the price of pretending is going to crush you. But people love to ignore the screams, don't they? Traps disguise themselves as comfort. That's the trick, isn't it? If a trap looked sharp, bloody, dangerous, you'd never walk near it. You'd turn around, you'd run, you'd fight. But when it looks soft, when it looks safe, when it looks like the very thing you've been craving, it pulls you in without resistance. That's the kind of cage people build their lives in. It doesn't feel like a cage at first. It feels like rest, like warmth, like reward. And before you even notice, the door has shut, the lock has turned. And the comfort you thought would save you becomes the very thing that suffocates you. Comfort, it's such a lovely lie. People think it means peace, but most of the time, it means surrender. The job that doesn't challenge you, but drains your soul. The relationship that doesn't grow you, but chains you with routine. The little habits you call coping, but are actually poison with a sweet aftertaste. It's all comfort. And comfort is the most patient trap in the world. It doesn't rush you. It lets you sit. It lets you laugh. It lets you pretend you're safe, while it wraps the ropes tighter, one loop at a time. You see, pain makes people move. Fire under the feet will get you running. Fear will make you fight. But comfort lulls you into stillness. It convinces you nothing needs to change. It whispers, stay. Don't push. Don't risk. And so you sink deeper and deeper, smiling as you're being swallowed alive. That's why it's more dangerous than any obvious enemy. You see an enemy, you fight. You feel the knife, you react. But when the knife is replaced by a soft pillow, you don't even notice it pressing down on your throat. And isn't it funny how people defend their own traps? Try to wake someone up from their comfort, and they'll hate you for it. Tell them their job is killing them. Their habits are destroying them. They're so-called safe. Choices are chaining them, and they'll laugh in your face. They'll call you dramatic, negative, crazy. Because deep down, they know you're right. They just don't want to admit it. Comfort makes cowards out of people. It makes them choose the slow death over the bloody battle. It makes them protect the cage instead of breaking it open. Every trap has bait. That's the rule. And comfort is the bait most people fall for. Money, security, approval, attention, whatever form it takes. It's always just enough to keep you hooked, but never enough to set you free. You'll notice that the people who scream the loudest about how happy they are in their comfort are often the ones most afraid to be left alone with their thoughts, because silence would show them the truth. Silence would strip the disguise and reveal the bars they've been sitting behind for years. And the worst part, the longer you stay in the comfort trap, the harder it is to get out. Your muscles weaken, your hunger dies, your fire fades. you become addicted to the very thing that's draining you. It feels impossible to escape because you've forgotten what struggle feels like, what risk feels like, what life feels like. That's the brilliance of the trap. It convinces you you're choosing it, when really, it's already chosen you. The voice screaming, "Wake up," isn't trying to ruin your comfort. It's trying to save you from it. Because comfort never stays soft forever. It turns sharp. It turns rotten. The sweetness fades and leaves only chains. And by the time most people realize it, they're too weak, too scared, too trapped to fight back. Comfort never intended to keep you safe. It only wanted you still, silent, easy to control. And the ones who ignore the warning will always learn too late that the bed they rested on was just the cage in disguise. The warning voice grows louder when ignored. That's how it always works. The first time, it's just a whisper, a nudge, a little discomfort you brush off, telling yourself it's nothing. Maybe it's the sinking feeling you get when you walk into that job you hate. Maybe it's the silence in the room with someone you know you don't belong with. Maybe it's the gnawing ache in your chest when you lie down at night, knowing you're not living the life you were meant to. That's the warning, soft, gentle, almost kind. But people love to ignore it. They drown it out with noise, with distractions, with excuses. They act like if they don't listen, the voice will disappear. It never does. It just gets louder. And the louder it gets, the more violent it feels. Because warnings aren't meant to be polite forever. They're designed to wake you up. The longer you stay asleep, the more force it takes to shake you. That's when life starts ripping things away. The job collapses, the relationship shatters, the health fails, the peace burns to ash, and people scream, "Why is this happening to me?" As if the voice hadn't been warning them for years. They confuse disaster with punishment when it's really just desperation. The voice clawing its way into their reality because whispers weren't enough. You see, the trap never stays quiet forever. At first, it wants you comfortable, unaware. But once the warning comes, once the truth begins to crack through the disguise, the trap gets nervous. And that's when the tension starts. You feel it in your bones, like something's off. But instead of facing it, you pour another drink, scroll another hour, fake another smile. You turn up the volume of the world to mute the sound of the warning. And it works. For a while. Until the silence returns, louder than before, impossible to ignore. Echoing in your head until it drowns out everything else. Ignoring the warning doesn't erase it. It multiplies it. Like a dripping faucet in the dead of night, at first, it's just an annoyance. But the more you try to pretend it's not there, the more it eats at your mind. Drip, drip, until it's the only thing you can hear, the only thing you can think about. That's the voice when you ignore it. It doesn't fade. It doesn't vanish. It grows into something that shakes your world until you finally look it in the eye. People love to say they didn't know or didn't see it coming. But the truth, they knew. They heard it. They felt it. They just didn't want to deal with it. because dealing with it means change. And change is messy, scary, uncertain. So they let the warning grow louder, thinking they were buying time, when really, they were letting the clock run out. By the time they finally admit the voice was right, the damage is already done. The trap has already snapped shut, and the escape costs more than it ever should have. The voice isn't your enemy. It's your last ally in a world designed to trick you. That's why it screams when you ignore it. It knows what's coming if you don't listen. But people treat it like background noise, like static, like an inconvenience. They don't realize it's the only thing standing between them and destruction. They'd rather trust the glittering lies around them than the piercing truth inside them. And that choice is always the beginning of the end. Every time you ignore the warning, you hand the trap another piece of yourself. A little more freedom, a little more strength, a little more hope. Until finally, the voice isn't warning you anymore. It's begging you. And even then, most people stuff their ears, pretending not to hear the cry that was meant to save them. The voice doesn't grow louder because it loves the sound of itself. It grows louder because it knows the clock is ticking. The walls are closing, and soon the choice won't be yours anymore. Distractions numb the truth, but never erase it. That's the trick most people play with themselves. They know something is wrong. They feel it gnawing at the back of their skull, clawing at the edge of their heart. But instead of facing it, they drown it. Music so loud it rattles the bones. Endless scrolling until the eyes blur. Food, drinks, laughs, fake smiles. Anything to make the silence stop echoing. And for a moment it works. For a moment, the truth feels far away, buried under noise. But here's the problem: the truth doesn't die. It waits. You can cover a wound with bandages, with perfume, with 1,000 pretty distractions. But if you don't treat it, it rots. That's what happens to people who live in distraction. Their souls rot quietly, behind the noise, behind the shows, behind the endless business they mistake for life. They keep running from the silence because they're terrified of what it might say. And the silence, oh, it's patient. It doesn't need to chase. It knows one day the noise will stop. And when it does, the truth will still be there, uglier and louder than ever. Distractions are clever because they don't feel like poison. They feel like relief. They feel like safety. That's why they're so effective. Nobody sits there and says, "I'll destroy myself today." No, they say, "I'll just relax, just one more drink, just one more episode, just one more night pretending everything's fine." But that's how traps are built. Slowly, quietly, through small comforts stacked on top of each other until the weight becomes chains. People bury themselves in distraction until they forget they're the ones who dug the hole. The truth can't be erased because it's not a thought, it's reality. And reality doesn't care if you're looking at it. A fire keeps burning whether or not you close your eyes. A storm keeps coming whether or not you hide under the blanket. The trap doesn't vanish because you distract yourself. It just grows while you're not watching. That's the danger. You think you're escaping, but really, you're giving it more room to grow teeth. And the worst part, distractions make you weaker. They dull your instincts. They soften your edge. You stop paying attention to the little signs, the whispers, the cracks in the walls, because you've trained yourself not to look. By the time you finally try to face it, you're not sharp anymore. You're sluggish, numb, too tired to fight. That's when the trap loves you most. When you've wasted all your energy hiding from it. Look around and you'll see it everywhere. People who can't sit in silence without reaching for something to fill it. People who avoid mirrors, who avoid questions, who avoid anything that forces them to face what's inside. They're not living. They're numbing. They call it fun. They call it rest. They call it normal. But deep down, they know it's an escape. And every escape has a price. The truth doesn't disappear just because you don't look at it. It waits behind every laugh, every distraction, every moment of fake peace. And when the noise fades, when the party ends, when the phone battery dies, the truth is still there, staring, sharper than before. That's why distractions never save you. They only delay the inevitable. They make the crash harder when it comes. They make the silence unbearable when it finally arrives. People believe they're clever, hiding from the voice, burying themselves in endless noise. But the truth doesn't need to chase them. It doesn't need to rush. It just waits. And the longer they ignore it, the stronger it gets, the deeper it cuts, the heavier it falls when it finally breaks through. Distractions numb the pain, yes, but pain numbed is still pain alive. And the truth you run from will always be the truth you crash into, harder, louder, unstoppable. Denial feeds the chains that hold you. That's the cruel beauty of it. People think denial is protection, a way to stay safe from pain, but really it's the very thing tightening the lock. The moment you refuse to see the truth, you've already handed it power over you. You've chosen blindness, and blindness is the perfect leash. Because the trap doesn't need to fight you if you won't even admit it exists. You'll sit inside it, convinced you're free, while the walls close in inch by inch, until freedom isn't even a word you remember anymore. Denial isn't silence, it's noise. It's the excuses you tell yourself when something feels off. It's not that bad. I can handle it. Everyone goes through this. That's denial disguised as logic. You paint over cracks with cheap words, thinking the wall will stand, while deep down you know it's crumbling. And every excuse is another link in the chain. Every "it's fine" is another knot around your throat. You think you're dodging the truth, but all you're really doing is binding yourself tighter to the very thing you fear. The trap loves denial. It feeds on it, grows fat from it, becomes invisible because of it. You can't fight what you refuse to see. And so you laugh when the warning comes. You roll your eyes when the signs flash. You bury your face in comfort, thinking you've won because you feel calm. But calm isn't freedom. Calm in denial is sedation. It's the drug they give you before the knife cuts. It's the quiet before the blade drops. People love denial because it makes them feel in control. Admit the truth, and you might have to change. You might have to fight. You might have to tear your own world apart. But deny it, and you get to stay still. No movement, no responsibility, no risk. Just chains that feel like routine. A cage that feels like home. That's the sickest part. It convinces you to decorate your prison, to polish the bars, to pretend the key was never real. Denial whispers that you're fine when you're dying. It tells you the trap is normal, that everyone lives like this, that you should be grateful for what you have. And you believe it because the truth is uglier. The truth would shatter your illusions, would demand you rip yourself away from everything you've clung to. So you feed yourself denial like candy, sweet on the tongue but rotting the bones. You trade freedom for comfort, awareness for illusion, and all the while, the trap tightens. The chain doesn't need to be heavy if you convince yourself it's jewelry. That's how denial works. You wear it with pride. You call it choice. You call it strength. You call it maturity. But deep inside, you know the weight pressing down isn't something you chose. It's something you're too afraid to face. And the longer you lie, the deeper it digs. Denial is never harmless. It always comes with a cost, and the cost is always freedom. And when the moment comes, the moment the trap finally snaps, you'll look back and realize you saw it all along. Every sign, every whisper, every warning. You weren't blind. You chose blindness. You weren't fooled. You fooled yourself. That's the darkest truth about denial. It isn't ignorance, it's betrayal. A betrayal of yourself, of the voice that begged you to wake up, of the life that could have been yours. And betrayal always leaves scars deeper than chains. Denial feeds the chains, makes them stronger, makes them unbreakable. Not because the chains were invincible, but because you gave them power with your silence. You kept them alive with every excuse, every lie, every refusal to see. And by the time you finally admit the truth, the chains aren't just around you. They're inside you. They've become part of who you are. And tearing them out will cost more than you ever imagined. Awareness is the first step to breaking free. It sounds simple, doesn't it? Just open your eyes. Just admit what's right in front of you. But that's the hardest thing for most people. Not because they can't see, but because they don't want to. Awareness demands the death of illusions. And people cling to illusions like lifeboats in the middle of the ocean. They'd rather hold on to the lie that's sinking them than risk the cold truth that might actually save them. But until you see the trap for what it is, you'll never escape it. You'll decorate it, justify it, defend it, but you'll never leave it. Awareness cuts. It doesn't stroke your ego. It doesn't comfort your fears. It carves through the layers of excuses you've built, the fake smiles, the carefully painted walls. And it hurts. That's why people avoid it. They'd rather stay numb in denial than bleed through the truth. But awareness doesn't care about your comfort. It cares about clarity. And clarity is sharp, merciless, stripping away everything soft and sweet until all that's left is the raw skeleton of reality. That's the moment you either crumble or rise. Most people think they'll be ready when awareness comes. They imagine themselves brave, strong, ready to face anything. But awareness rarely arrives politely. It kicks down the door. It shows you the betrayal, the trap, the chain you've been polishing like a trophy. It shows you that the safe life you built was really a cage. It shows you that the people you trusted fed the poison you swallowed willingly. And suddenly, the ground falls out from under you. That's awareness. It's chaos before freedom, death before rebirth. The first step is always seeing. Seeing the job that drains your soul instead of feeds it. Seeing the relationship that cages your heart instead of frees it. Seeing the habits you call coping, but are really chains in disguise. Seeing the truth you've avoided for so long because you were too scared of the cost. That's why awareness feels like a burn. It doesn't let you unsee. Once the curtain drops, you can't pretend the play is real anymore. And that's terrifying, because now you have to decide, live blind or live free. Awareness doesn't hand you freedom. It hands you responsibility. It says, now you know. What will you do about it? And that question haunts people. Because as long as you stay blind, you can blame the world. You can say you didn't know, that you were tricked, that it wasn't your fault. But once you're aware, you lose that excuse. The chains are still there, but now you see them. And if you stay, it's not the trap holding you. It's you holding the trap. That realization breaks people, because it leaves no one left to blame. The irony is, awareness doesn't make the chains stronger. It makes them weaker. A chain you can see is a chain you can break. A cage you admit exists is a cage you can escape. Awareness shines a light on the very lies that kept you trapped. And the moment you face them, they begin to lose their grip. But that's not what most people feel at first. At first, all they feel is the pain of knowing they've wasted years in the dark. That grief keeps them frozen. They cry for the lost time, for the wasted energy, for the illusion they built their life around. But freedom doesn't care about the past. It only cares about what you do with the truth right now. Awareness is ugly. It shows you the worst about yourself and the world. It strips away the fantasies, the excuses, the comfortable lies. But without it, you're just another prisoner pretending the bars are part of the design. Awareness may be the first step, but it's the one that costs the most. Because once you see, you can't go back. Once you know, ignorance is dead. And once ignorance is dead, you either rise into freedom or rot in chains you now recognize.